Welcome back to another session with the older man. My name is Paul, and today I want to touch on a ticklish subject. Yeah, this is going to trigger the feminists, but I want to be able to have an open discussion on a simple issue.
My position is that it's laughable that egalitarianism is even possible because women have no way to enforce their rights. They have to use men to enforce their rights. So since they have to use men to enforce their rights, they don't really have any rights because all the rights come from men.
Women in the West don't understand how privileged they are, and they complain about this patriarchy and how men are patriarchs and we just want to oppress the women. And even me, I get a lot of pushback on this channel sometimes when I stand up for men. And the reason why I have to bring this up is for a number of reasons. One, I have a channel that helps men, that advise men, that push a male's narrative. Does that mean I'm anti-woman? Hell no. Hell no. Absolutely not. I'm a married man. I have 2 girls. I live in a world of women, meaning I live in a house with 4 women and I treat them with respect. My wife, 2 daughters, and a helper. I grew up with 5 sisters. I'm the only son. I get it. I understand women's issues. I know. Okay? Now, with that said, I just want you subscribe. Subscribe, hit the bloody notification button so you guys can get some knowledge. So you guys can keep getting informed. I want you guys to have a well-rounded understanding of life. That's why you're hitting that subscription button. That's why you're hitting the notification button. All right? Because there's nothing better than learning from an older man with an open perspective on life. So, I saw this on the news this morning. This just came across the news, and it was a story about the Taliban. For those of you that have been living under a rock, this is basically the Taliban in Afghanistan, which took over from the US, which defeated the US. I think the US was in there for 20 years? 20 years. Trying to fight for female equality in the Middle East. It failed. I think it was last year, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, the US had to leave. Okay? One thing we do know about the Taliban and their ideology is that they're very conservative Muslims. And of course, part of that Muslim ideology is that women should cover themselves completely. Women should not work. Women should not be educated. In other words, women, based on our understanding in the West, women shouldn't have any face in public at all.
The uncovered faces of female models. The uncovered faces of female models are painted out on buildings. The Taliban basically believe women should all but disappear from public life. It's nonsense, of course, and behind the curtain, it's utterly ignored. And
I put this lightly. I don't want to get... I live in a Middle Eastern country. I'm not touching on too many issues, right? I keep my opinions to myself, and I basically just call it like it is. Now, Dubai is completely different, of course. It's all about pro-woman. But let's just watch the news. Let's just watch today's news. One of these was from India.
In the latest shrinking of access to public places for Afghan women, the Taliban administration in Afghanistan has ordered beauty salons to close within a month. Mohammad Sadiq Akif, a spokesperson for the Ministry for the Prevention of Vice and Propagation of Virtue, said the deadline for the closing of beauty parlors for women is 1 month. Foreign governments and UN officials have condemned growing restrictions on women since the Taliban returned to power in 2021 after defeating a US-backed government as foreign forces withdrew. Last year, authorities closed most girls' high schools, barred women from university and stopped many female Afghan aid staff from working. Many public places including bathhouses, gyms and parks have been closed to women.
So there you go. Literally, beauty parlors are now closed, forbidden in Afghanistan. I show you that, and I want to follow it up with a piece that was done by the BBC, which basically talks about the incredible depression rate, suicide rate among women in Afghanistan. Let's have a quick listen.
In Afghanistan, doctors have told the BBC that there is a catastrophic mental health crisis, particularly among women and girls, and they report a sharp increase in the cases of suicide. The United Nations has also raised concerns about the latest trends. BBC's Yogita Lime has travelled to different parts of Afghanistan with colleagues Imogen Anderson and Sanjay Ganguly to investigate what is going on.
I just want someone to hear my voice. I'm in pain, and I'm not the only one. Most of the girls in my class have had suicidal thoughts. We are all suffering from depression and anxiety.
In her 20s, this Afghan student told us why she tried to end her life. We're hiding her identity to protect her.
Going to university and meeting my friends was the only comfort and happiness I had in my life. When it was banned, I started spending a lot of time alone at home with just one thought on my mind, that nothing was ever going to be okay again. One night I tried to take my own life.
Her words give an insight into a less visible yet urgent crisis facing Afghanistan, particularly its women. In a patriarchal society, especially one worn out by a long war, 1 in 2 people, most of them women, suffered from mental health issues even before the Taliban took over.
So, there you go. Now, this made headline news. This is now mainstream news on various television screens around the world. So, here's the thing. Did any of you know that last month, June, was Men's Mental Health Month? Did any of you ever see anything on mainstream media about mental health? Let me know in the comments, because I can tell you, I saw shit all. I saw nothing. And now that I put those two things together, female depression, suicide rates, big event, men's depression, suicide rates, nothing. Then you have to ask yourself, where is the big disconnect between the males and the females in the Western world? And then I saw this piece here. I just want you guys to see now the delusion of women about this idea of being in a patriarchy versus men giving women total rights in the West. Just so that you guys can understand the disconnect here.
Sure, if men are the enforcement mechanism, why does that then mean that women's equality is a bad idea?
Well, I didn't say it was a bad idea. I mean, it is, but what my position is that it's laughable that egalitarianism is even possible, because women have no way to enforce their rights. They have to use men to enforce their rights. So since they have to use men to enforce their rights, they don't really have any rights, because all the rights come from men.
But why does the notion of egalitarianism have to be predicated on physical strength, or like who gets to enforce it?
Well, what else could it be predicated on?
You see, this is how delusional women are in the West. In Afghanistan, men say, no, you cover your face, you cover your hair, don't come out in public, you're not getting any education in school, schools are shut down, beauty salons are shut down, you can't work, you stay at home, you cook, you clean, you take care of your husband will take care of you. That is it. What is it that the woman can do over there? Nothing. Nothing. And now this little privileged Western woman is arguing on the fact that, oh, she's so delusional that she thinks that that women can get away with doing whatever they want in the Western world. Not realizing that the only way they get away with it is because men allow it. But when you look at countries like Afghanistan, it's clear as day. But yet, Western women are so privileged. Men have given them all the privileges that they want and more, that they honestly don't understand. They have no clue. Let's just finish watching the rest of this.
principles of like what's best for society.
And what happens if somebody
men and women
violates
are
those
intellectually
principles?
equal?
Sure.
Like, why would it be based off the enforcement?
What happens if somebody violates those principles?
What do you mean?
Well, so if you have a society in which you have laws and government and things like this and whatever social contracts you come up with, what happens if one side violates those principles, or a person or an individual or a group violates those principles? What would you do with them? You would, well, I would think arrest them maybe, or punish them, or do something punitive, or put them in prison or something like that. And so you're right back to the enforcement mechanism again. So there's really no way around it. The enforcement mechanism is from men, will always be from men. And so it's paradoxical to say that women can have equal rights, because even if they do have equal rights, it's just because men have allowed them to.
Okay, so if that's true, if men are the enforcement mechanism.
She still don't get it. So gentlemen, ladies, please try to understand the realities of life. I am not fighting for a patriarchy. I'm not fighting for a matriarchy. I am fighting for normal human rights between two parties. But I strongly feel that feminism is now pushing for supremacy at the expense of men. I think that's where we are as a society. Men's voices are being silenced, and other men are allowing it, because other men have been conditioned to think that women are right. Too many of these men have been brought up by women in a single parent household where they don't even understand that they're acting more like women rather than men, to the detriment of men. That's the message I'm trying to get across to other men, is that you need to stop it. You need to stop simping. You need to say to yourself, hey, let me look at the big picture. Women have it great, but we're now literally operating as a matriarchy in today's society. Is it a good thing? I don't think so.
I was a feminist when feminism was about equality, giving women an opportunity to find their rightful place, particularly in the public world, which was tremendously important and exciting when we achieved that. But what feminism today, to me, is all about advantaging women at the expense of men. And it's become very much caught up in the demonisation of males. I came across an article I wrote 40 years ago where we just started to notice how badly boys were doing vis-a-vis girls. What was becoming very obvious is there were also a lot of boys falling behind and not achieving their potential. We have really very much feminist ideology infiltrating all our education systems, systematic programs to continue to advantage girls, and no one taking any notice of the fact that boys are falling out in huge numbers.
There's a serious problems socially across all spectrums. Do I agree with the Taliban? Hell no. That's too extreme. And this is the argument I always get whenever I talk to people. People always go to the extremes of everything. You know, the beautiful thing about it, there's a happy medium where both genders can live in harmony. I personally feel you got to bring back some of the old-fashioned ways of doing things. You know, bringing back the nuclear family. Don't separate men from women in the family. The laws have to change. But as long as large corporations are benefiting and the narrative is being pushed on mainstream media and male channels such as this one, Andrew Tate's, and all the other men who are saying, hey, there's something wrong with the system, as long as we're silenced and shut up, then there will be a problem. Anyway, guys, let me read a few comments from that last piece, just so that you can see other people's opinion. Just so you know it's not only me, right? So Zubaya Dasum says, damn, as much as it triggers the woman in me, he's absolutely right. We only have rights because men allow us to. It's technically the rule of nature for the weaker sex to be subordinate and submissive to the stronger sex. Even within the same sex, this rule applies. Absolutely. Alpha Dog Millionaire responds, thank you for your honesty and being pragmatic. A simp, Brian1256 Jones, said he's wrong. And the boy Anthony, not a simp, says a woman can pull a trigger same as a man. He realizes that, right? What a dumbass statement to make. You don't think men are better at weapons than women? Sure, a woman can pull a trigger, but other men can pull a lot more triggers and bombs and everything else that comes with it and still kill you barehanded. Just because a woman has access to a gun, that don't mean that she can fight. Someone responds to Brian, in all of history, what sustainable society stayed in power ran by women? None. The answer is none. There is no matriarchy that have survived the test of time. But every single society ran by men, controlled by men, are still here. He tried some crap. The Celts, one example would be the Boudica. Egypt, Cleopatra, China has more than a couple of empresses. He's trying hard, but none of these people still exist. None of their matriarchies still exist. That's the reality of life. And the guy responded back to him, and none of them stood the test of longevity. Secondly, their power was, drumroll please, predicated off the strength of males defending their short-lived rule. And he's right. Let me know what you think. This is just me trying to point out the delusion of, Western society as usual, and pointing out, especially a guy living on the other side of the world, that, guys, you don't see a lot of the world just cooped up within your confined space of the United States of America, or in Canada, or a little island in the Caribbean. This world is massive. Massive, and there's a lot of different things that are happening in the world, and if you want to see examples of life, you got to look at the world in a broader spectrum. You can't just look in your backyard and take examples from that and think that that's how the world is run. Okay, anyway, listen, I'm gonna cut this short. And so, remember, subscribe, let's have a discussion, let's talk about it. All right, share this video with some of your friends, let's have a dialogue. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.